welcome to my channel. I'm Zoya Day, licensed esthetician, and this is Day's Beauty Room, your #1 source for professional skincare advice, product knowledge, and esthetician tips. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to my YouTube video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because you're not going to want to miss all the really great content I have coming. Let's get started with today's video. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to become an esthetician. I do already have a video explaining what an esthetician is and what we do in our treatment rooms. So make sure you check it out. I'll drop the link in the description box. But today we're going to be discussing all the basics of what it takes to become an esthetician. So what are the courses like? What questions should I be asking? What do I need to be looking for when I'm looking for schools? And I'll also briefly touch on my experience as an esthetician and everything I kind of went through during the courses. Just keep in mind everybody's experience is different. What I experienced in school might not be what you experienced or went through in school. So always double check with your state and your state's regulations to know exactly what you are able and not able to do. All right, now let's get right into the video. I've been a licensed esthetician for about 2 years now, and I started school around June 2017. So that's about a 9-month course, which is pretty average for most aesthetic courses. Now, most of my information is going to be based on the schools in Texas and the regulations that Texas follows. I don't know all of the regulations as far as different states. Like I always say, make sure you check whatever school you're going to or whatever your state regulations are. Make sure you always double check with them. The aesthetics course I took was about 750 hours, I believe. And my experience, I feel like it wasn't a bad experience. There were definitely things that happened that I feel like wouldn't have happened to just the average person. In school, I feel like there was a lot going on back and forth with teachers, and it was just a whole thing. That'll probably be another video in its own time because let me tell you. So let's get into how to find the right school. There are definitely a few pointers you want to keep in mind when you are looking for schools. So the way I found my school is that I previously went there for my cosmetology license. I didn't get my cosmetology license. I realized I don't really like doing hair. I like doing the chemical parts of hair, so like the coloring, perming, you know, like weaves and wigs and all that fun stuff. But as far as like styling, updos and all of that, it's not my cup of tea. So I ended up not finishing cosmetology school. There was a whole bunch of other reasons, but honestly my heart wasn't in it, so I just didn't finish. And about a year or so later is when I found the aesthetics program. A few things that I definitely looked for when I was looking for schools were, is the school accredited? Now, I don't know if this is the same for all states, but in the state of Texas, there are a few accredited programs like the NACCAS. So you want to get an idea of how the student life is at the school. So the best way to do that is getting reviews from past students or graduates. So most schools will have like a few testimonials on their website. You can also find any graduates that might be licensed esthetician in the field already. You might be able to ask them a few questions about their school experience and what schools they went to. And if you let them know that you're interested in becoming a licensed esthetician, usually they'll kind of have that conversation with you. I can't speak for everyone, so if they don't, I mean, that's on them. I know when I'm asked about like school and my experience, I usually just give the information out because I know it's hard to find. At least in the state of Texas, the aesthetics field isn't as booming as it is, let's say, in California, places like that. I feel like the aesthetics and beauty field is definitely thriving a lot more and a lot quicker. You definitely want to do some research on the schools. I would say starting off, you should Google aesthetic schools near me or beauty schools near me and see what comes up. Review the different schools that pop up. Pick at least the top 5 if that option is available, because I know aesthetic schools aren't very common in certain places. So you might not have a list of 5, you might only have a list of 3, and that's totally fine also. You just want to make sure that you narrow your list down so it's easier for you to gather information, visit the schools, call, and all of that other stuff that comes with researching. So the next one is to tour the school. I feel like touring the schools is very important because it lets you get, you know, more of an inside look on how the classes are set up, the sizes of the school. It gives you an option to kind of ask the the instructors or teachers any questions you might have. And sometimes they'll let you even speak to some of the students so you kind of get an idea of how they're liking the school and stuff like that. So taking a tour definitely helps you kind of figure out the vibe of the school, and it gives you the option to ask important questions before you actually enroll. So let's get into the questions I believe you should ask while you're on tour. One of the most important questions I think you can ask while looking for schools is, how much is the tuition? You want to know exactly how much tuition is, what is all covered in tuition, and also how long once you graduate do you have to pay them or to start paying on them. How long are the courses and how many hours are needed to graduate? I feel like that'll kind of give you an idea of if this is something you are able to do time-wise, because it is a lengthy course. It's not as long as cosmetology, which is about a year or so, but I mean, it's time consuming, and you want to make sure you're able to devote all of your time to this. Do you offer day or night classes? This also goes into having the time and availability to actually go to school. Day and night classes give you that flexibility. So if you work during the day and prefer to go to school at night, you can do that. Or if you go to school during the day and work in the evening, that's also an option. And sometimes the night classes are considered part-time, but you should always double check. This is right up there with tuition. You want to ask if financial aid is available. And does it cover day and night? Because nighttime can be considered part-time. Financial aid might not cover it or might only cover a portion. So this is where, you know, you will talk to your advisor or counselor or however they have it set up at your school to kind of get you started with that. Do you guys have to wear uniform? Do you have a dress code? Most beauty schools have a certain dress code, all black, closed-toe shoes, which is common even in the beauty field. So definitely want to ask and double check to make sure. Some schools also allow you to wear different colors like white and gray, I believe, depending on what phase you're in and how long you've been in the course. Sometimes you're allowed to wear scrubs or like lab coats. So if dress code is important to you, then it's definitely a question you want to make sure you ask. What is included in the aesthetics kit? So this is a big one. You want to know if you're going to need additional supplies while joining school. For the most part, they'll give you everything you kind of need as far as like books and any supplies, but it is always good to double check to see if they recommend any extra supplies. Now, this is definitely a big one and sometimes can make or break the decision to enroll in school. And that is, what are your rules and regulations? You definitely want to get information on their guidelines as far as attendance, because attendance is going to be huge when it comes to graduation. Attendance is one of the biggest part of going to school. In order to graduate, I mean, you need to be there. They account for you by the number of hours you are at school. So if you are constantly missing, that will prevent you from getting the number of hours you need in order to graduate. I had class on Saturdays, so sometimes those Saturday mornings were very hard to get up for. And I did miss a few Saturdays. And when I tell you attendance is probably the biggest part of aesthetics, it might be the hardest part of aesthetics. Like, only the strong survive, okay? Because you will see a lot of people, I mean, dropping out because they just can't stick with the hours. So you definitely want to make sure the hours that they require you to be at school, you are able to do them. So another question you want to ask is, what is required to graduate? So at my school, they required a certain client count they wanted me to meet before I graduated. They also had a retail quota that I needed to meet before I completed, you know, the course. There was also a bunch of different daily tasks that I needed to complete. We'll get into that a little later in the video. So you definitely want to make sure you know what they require from their students. What does the course cover? So one thing about aesthetic school is that they really only cover the basics of skincare, beauty, makeup, waxing, or hair removal. So you definitely want to ask what they cover and if you're going to need any additional certifications once you graduate and become licensed. So I did write down a few extra questions to help you decide if the school is right for you. So you want to ask about their graduation rate and job placement rate. And what I mean by that is most schools work with different spas and retailers to get their graduate jobs once they become licensed. I know my school worked with Ulta, European Wax Center, and a few other places, and they work with these companies to help you get a job in the related field. And as far as graduation rate, you want to make sure that people aren't just going to the school and dropping out. You want to make sure people are actually graduating and becoming licensed. What is the student to teacher ratios? It is always good to ask, because sometimes having too big of a class and only one teacher, it can be hell. That is one of the things that I had to deal with when I was in school. And I don't recommend it, honestly, having giant classes and one instructor. It makes it a little harder to interact with the instructor. My phase was pretty small. There was no more than, I believe, maybe less than 10 of us total. And the phases coming, they were huge. The phase 1 that was coming when I was in phase 3, I believe, was like 30 plus. On top of the previous phase was like 20 something. So by the time everyone got into the spa, it was super packed and it was just hard to get anything done. So you definitely want to make sure that the schools and classes aren't super jam-packed and possibly disrupt how you learn. Do they cover testing fees and provide testing supplies? So once you're in phase 4 and getting ready to graduate, what you're going to have to do is take usually a written and a practical exam. Now I know in certain states you don't have to take the practical. I believe like Illinois, you only have to take a written exam, but here in Texas you have to take a written exam and the practical, which is pretty much just kind of like a hands-on mock service, just to kind of see your skills and technique. But with that, sometimes you have to bring your own supplies. I believe the only supplies I had to pick up were like hand sanitizer, tweezers, and I think maybe like a mask or something for some part of the testing. Like I said, it's been almost like 3 years since I've been in since I've taken my exam, so I honestly can't remember. But like I said, always double check. Do they offer scholarships? So most schools will offer a scholarship either through the school or work with different partners and offer scholarships that way. And you can also always find, scholarships out on your own if you need any help, with financial assistance. You can also look into like grants, but it's always good to ask the school what they offer and if they know of any scholarships that some graduates have used in the past. Another big question to ask is, what brand does the aesthetics field work with? When I say brand, I do mean skincare line and any type of like makeup products or anything that they use or that they give you in the kits or use in the treatment rooms. I know a big one most schools and a lot of schools like to use is Dermalogica, but like I said, make sure you double check. One thing you do want to keep in mind is you want to make sure that they are using a credible skincare line and nothing like St. Ives or Neutrogena. What are the classes like? So this is a big one to kind of give you a better understanding of how they run their classes. So the way my class setting was kind of set up was we would do theory in the morning and go to lunch, and after lunch we would be in the spa doing hands-on things that either we learned in theory or that we had been kind of practicing throughout the week. Once you're on the floor or in the spa or treatment room, you'll be able to practice different techniques like waxing, lash and brow tinting if that's something that is offered, or something like lash extensions. So upon graduation, you'll enter phase 4, and in phase 4 you'll be discussing what you learned in your previous phases, like vocabulary you guys might have went over, skin conditions, sanitation and sterilization, anatomy and physiology, and any other services or techniques you might have went through. So a rule of advice while going through aesthetic school is to remember to always take notes and practice your techniques. Taking notes throughout school is going to help you study when it comes time to take your written exam, which is really important because they do cover a lot of the topics that you go over in school and in theory. So remember to always take notes. And you can also use sites like Quizlet, which literally saved my life during school. It allowed me to take little practice tests and it really helped me remember some of the vocabulary and sanitation that is super important on the state exam. So I definitely recommend using Quizlet. So now you have a little bit more information to help you on your journey to becoming an esthetician. If you found this information useful, make sure to hit that like button. If you have any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the comments section below, or you can hit me up on Instagram And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and see you guys in my next video.